But there is a lot of news. Actually, I'll say this. I sat down to do the news as I do every Sunday, and I was watching the baseball playoff game that was going on Sunday night, putting the news together, and I thought, I don't know, that we got the Mando trailer coming Monday night. There's probably not a lot of news. And there not only was news, but there's some big juicy discussion points in this. So
yeah,
if you're ready, we'll dive in. Let's dive into the juiciness. This is the headline: a Mando movie? ? Well, not quite yet. Plus, season 3 is on schedule. A lot packed into this story. Favreau and Pedro Pascal and Jon Favreau were interviewed by Variety ahead of season 2, and many clickbait headlines, which, look, we understand clickbait headlines. We understand. Get the attention, get your clicks. We want downloads too, my friends. But a lot of headlines have emerged hinting that a Mandalorian movie could come out of this series. But really, not so fast. Favreau said he has no rush in pushing the story beyond the streaming service. Pedro Pascal would love it, but has heard no plans. So from there, Joseph, let's dive into some specifics, because I think interesting conversation to be had here about that idea. Johnny Fav said this. Allow me, if you all will, to read this longer quote. I learned a lot from my experience over at Marvel, where it was very organic, how it would evolve. You're paying attention to a larger story arcs and characters that could come together, but also smaller stories of individual characters that could go off on their own thing. The key here is to keep maintaining the quality and never scaling to the point that we're losing sight of what's important to us and what people like about the show. He also added he's excited to see where the story leads us and have that flexibility. So let's start there, Joseph. That's some big stuff about the organic flow of storytelling. Maybe a comment on some planning in pencil, or having the overall picture, but kind of seeing where it goes. And something like that could lead to a movie. What do you think about Johnny Favs and all the things he's saying here?
Yeah, I love a couple of things that he is saying. I love that he is making this distinction between you're paying attention to larger story arcs and stories of individual characters. I mean, so much what he's saying is really about that organic of like, yeah, we're not just going like, hey, we got to hit a movie. So which character should be the movie? And we got to hit it by this quarter. So let's go. Everything he's saying is like, hey, it flows from the story. And I like that he's making a specific distinction between like, yeah, it could go that this would grow into some big story. Maybe there's a, bounty hunter guild war, and that's what it's about. Or maybe it's just like, hey, wait, actually, this one bounty hunter we met, you know what? Maybe just Grief Karga goes home to wherever his home planet is. And we just follow Grief Karga around. It's about that character. And I like that he is as one of the main creators with Dave Filoni, that he is starting from that point of like, it could go off in these different directions, and not just in terms of what the story is, but what kind of story. And that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, and look, there's especially this week, there's some rumors of spin-off shows. One of which was as of a year and a half ago was not just a rumor. It was something that was in development around town. We are hearing that one there, but a lot changes, and there's this idea here that Favreau, in the Variety article that they write, Favreau did allow that the faster metabolism of TV production meant Lucasfilm can be more responsive to audience sentiment about the show, and quote, we could start to expand what we're doing and our ambitions about what characters we want to follow, which backs up a little bit what you're saying there about, we want more Grief Karga, we'll get more Grief Karga, or something like that. Now, it isn't necessarily that it's going to be like American Idol, where we get to vote at the end of every episode about more characters, but that's interesting stuff there too, that this could go a lot of ways if they want, and that they're not forced. I love what you're saying too, Joseph. There's no need right now. There's no mandate 6 seasons in a movie. There's none of that, which is a fun nod to a community. But I like that they could just see where it goes. That's what I want in my Star Wars.
Yeah, and I think that's a thing that happens just creatively, really organically. Again, I'm going to say the word organic like 72 times this episode of the podcast, I promise you, because it's so much, it's the distinction. Like a script I worked on for a movie in the last couple of years, it was just like, it involved a family, and for some reason, the mother just came to life. Like, I didn't really plan it. It's not in my outline. The mother just became like, I love this character. She's so cool. And then when I was shopping it around and some people were interested in it, they're like, we love this, but you know what? The mother is the star. Can you give us more of the mother? Like,
Mm.
there was nothing, and I think that just happens in the scripts too. Of like, I think Favreau and Filoni might be just sitting down to go like, Mando needs to bump into this character on this planet to serve this function, but something about that character clicks and just comes to life. And I think that's the kind of thing that he's talking about. I don't think he's talking about like, yeah, we've been looking at the social media data
Yes.
and there are more hashtags,
Mhm.
for the armorer. So whether or not we have any ideas, the armor is getting a show. No, nothing against the armor. I love the armor, but you know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. No, I think it's important to note in this day and age, and I'm not. I don't want to be Eastwood on my porch in Torino here. Just like I think sometimes there is that thought of making a not loud enough ruckus that you get away. And sometimes sometimes it does work. Sometimes you get an animated movie character redesigned. All right. Sometimes it does work.
The
And I don't
Sonic rule.
Yes, and I don't think that's an inherently a bad thing. By the way, I get it. I really do get it. And speaking out is about what you want as a fan is what we do here for us every week. Every time I say the name Ray Sloan, it's because I want more Ray Sloan. So
Yeah.
we're there too on that. But yeah, it's the where the actors, once an actor gets into a role, chapter 5,000 of Ken mentions Game of Thrones. I'm reading that behind the scenes book of Fire Cannot Kill a Dragon. And it's amazing. And I know a lot about the making of that show. There's some things I'm learning of like, wow, that was determined on the set.
Yeah.
And wow, a performer came in and said, this isn't working for me. Can we go this direction? Or demanded of Dan and Dave, I want to go this direction. And they went, well, that sounds like a great idea. And that's just part of the process. And I know Johnny Favs, and I don't mean any disrespect. I love Favreau. I know they're feeling that, and he's an actor himself by trade. So that excites me, Joseph. Of that stuff could just organically flow out. There's that word again. And what do you think? I'll throw it. Uncle Bob Iger said in February on one of the calls, one of the business calls, the possibility of infusing the show with more characters and the possibility of taking these characters in their own direction in terms of the series exists. He's kind of saying that out there. And this could very well be spin-offs, but I think with the books and comics, this could be more about a Mando verse. And I want to kind of go there with you, Joseph. What do you think about a Mando verse? That could very well lead to a movie, whether that movie's on the big screen or a streaming service, a 2-hour block of storytelling, continuous storytelling. What do you think about that kind of emerging? Are you excited by that and all the possibilities?
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by whatever a Mando verse might be, if it's movies, books, comics. With the movie discussion, we should be mindful of Disney just made an announcement, I think last week, 2 weeks, about like we're putting more of our effort into streaming because right now that's where it is because we don't know, when theaters are going to be open to a level where they're profitable again. So when we get excited about movies, it might just be like, it's a movie, but it's just the 2-hour special of Mandalorian, but you're still going to be streaming on your couch. Like, so there's all that to keep in mind. In terms of like the Mandoverse with books and comics and how much it might expand, I'm excited for it because I like the content so far. I like the storytelling. I trust the creators involved. They've brought in other creators that I'm excited about, so, here's a Mando series that's Rick Famuyiwa gets to follow his bliss. Maybe it's the Jawas. I don't know. I don't care because I'm interested in what he has to say. But I am also interested in what it does to the style. Like this goes to me to the Star Wars romance versus realism. Like we talked about on that main show or the deep dive show a little while ago of like right now, the Mandalorian it's defining itself by doing tip of the iceberg storytelling. It's defining itself by the mood of this mysterious Mando that you're only ever gonna know so much. It is doing that classic original trilogy kind of storytelling of like, hey, tracking fobs, they're just a thing in the galaxy and the characters know how they work and there's no reason for us to turn to the camera and explain them to you. Baby Yoda ended up on Arvala 7 somehow, but that's not interesting to the story or important to it right now, so we're not going to tell you how he ended up there. The more you expand, the more romance becomes realism as you fill in all of the questions with potential details and answers. And I wonder what that's going to do to people's reaction to The Mandalorian that has defined itself by it feels fresh because it's back to that mysterious, you don't know all the answers kind of Star Wars feel.
Yeah, and it's weird. See, as you're describing that, it's like my gut reaction is as this grows, even just the show in terms of more seasons. I think we've mentioned this before of like how does it connect with the larger story in the larger galaxy? I still contend that if Moff Gideon is too big and too powerful, at least some message would get to Leia and Mon Mothma, at some point.
Yeah, yeah.
And I want that. I want those kind of connections. But then, how much does that change what's working for the show? And Favreau is talking about some of these quotes here about never losing sight of what's important to us and what people like about the show. And I know a lot of people do love that this is its own quote unquote own thing. So as it spins out, I don't know. We keep making the spinoff and the Frasier jokes and whatever you make there. But Grief Karga sitting across from Genevieve O'Reilly as Mom Mothma is something I'd love. But is that Mando and everything? The bigger kind of questions. I don't know. And that's the only thing I don't know if I want this. I don't have trepidation over it, but just like, can they maintain what they're doing? Which is, as Favreau says, we're not Star Wars. We're over here in the playground.
Yep. And he's, yeah.
No, go. And would it grow too big,
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that's what's fascinating about this storytelling is you look at this one Mandalorian who's got his own adventure in his own life, and it really feels like, yep, we're just over in the corner doing our cool, it's almost like the first season of Mandalorian is like that garage band album that happened to blow up and become the biggest album ever. And that garage band album is sincerely about not being able to move out of your hometown and the first time you fell in love, and then the second album is like 3 years later and it's about like we live in mansions, how do we have sincerity to our lives, and there's that big shift that a lot of bands wrestle with that difficult second album, because it's that they've stepped into a larger world. And it's not a one-to-one comparison, because obviously this is being made by, Mandalorian season 1 is made by, one of the largest entertainment conglomerations that's ever existed by one of the most successful filmmakers of our generation in Johnny Favs. But it's interesting to me that the show dances on that edge of, we're a hip little indie thing if we just follow Mandalorian and his bounty hunter friends. But it's so close to, yeah, but if you're looking for, Baby Yoda's species, you could meet Ahsoka, you could meet Luke Skywalker. If Moff Gideon wants this baby for like force powers, that's really dancing into, well, why doesn't that start becoming the story of how the First Order came about? Why doesn't that become that Moff Gideon is actually pals with some Sith Eternal and knows about Exegol? And like, it's fascinating that it's so small, but the storytelling that it's doing, you could see how it could so easily hook into huge storytelling in Star Wars.
I mean, very easily. And your band comparisons are absolutely right. As a lifelong Sarah McLachlan fan who wasn't sure about Lilith Fair, though I did love that thing. So yeah, that's great. That's great stuff there. And specifically, just I think I never want to ask too leading of questions here for the discussions, but I mean, you and I would probably safe to say we'd be excited for a Mando movie down the line, whatever that may be.
Absolutely. I am excited for a Mando movie, with the caveat that if the movie business industry manages to sort of emerge from the pandemic in the general shape that we've known before, where there are still, movie theaters and we go out to movies, there is a part of me that wants the next on-screen Star Wars film to be its own thing. Like, I'm not against a Mando movie, but if they scrapped the Taika Waititi movie and just went all in on Mandalorian, I think I'd be concerned about that, because I think I want something really bold, really new, that really reclaims the silver screen in its own way. Like, I still think they should do something like the Jedi Sith War, and just something really bold and really re-owning the silver screen.
You got go picture for me there. So there. Yeah, and as a side note, season 3's production is said to be on schedule, and a large part of that is due to the volume. And final thoughts here on the movie of Mandalorian, if it goes to the big screen, the silver screen, as you say there, I can't imagine. I have a love like relationship with the volume. I can't wait for it to just keep getting bigger and better and bigger and better. But I can't imagine a movie. They wouldn't do it right now, but in 5 years it would look different. But a movie done on the volume, I don't know. I emotionally, I'd have to kind of get to a spot to accept that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't care if it looks good, but I feel like maybe they need a bigger volume.
Yes, a bigger volume. Get bigger volume. We'll keep you updated on all of that. We're getting ready for Mandalorian. Man, we are inside 2 weeks to the Mando season 2. That's exciting. I love knowing the new Star Wars is on our way. And speaking of new programming here, we're all going to be watching the Lego Holiday Special on November 17th on Disney Plus. That's right. We are all going to be watching. This is going to be fun. And they announced that 3 more of the main Star Wars cast will be voices on the show, voicing their characters. That's how that works. Billy D. Williams, Kelly Marie Tran, and Anthony Daniels are all part of the voice cast, which includes, for right now, I'm sure there's more, Matt Lanter, James Arnold Taylor, D. Bradley Baker, and Tom Kane as Yoda. Executive producer James Waugh said this to Entertainment Weekly about Rose Tico. Rose's role in this is that she really takes charge. She basically saves the day in many ways. We wanted to make sure we got a lot of Kelly in, as Rose was going to be an essential part of whatever the Resistance heroes' future it's going to be after episode 9, and she was a blast to work with. Now, no doubt, Joseph, we would have loved to see more of Kelly Marie Tran as Rose Tico in episode 9. We didn't get it, but what do you think about this inclusion of her in this special? Does that mean a Lego special, more of a comedy piece? It's going to be a lot of fun. Is this a good start for you?
Yeah, I think this is a good start of justice for Rose. As we've talked about a lot, I would have loved more Rose in episode 9, or a little bit more clear, big hero moment for her to celebrate the character and the character's perspective. But I really like what James Waugh is saying in this quote, that, kind of storytelling wise, Story Group, obviously having some influence on what this Lego story would be. It's canon adjacent, but it does seem like it's really trying to, like all the Lego stuff has been, of like, there'll be a disco at Cloud City. But other than that, Lando's pretty true to who Lando is, right? In these kind of Lego shows. So I think being true to the characters and saying, well, Rose does seem like the character who would say, I've got a lot of opinions about how we move forward now. We've been in this resistance to save the galaxy, but now that we kind of have, what's next, and really step into a leadership role, that's really, really cool for the character. And I think it's cool because, as you were saying, the Lego stuff is comedic. Kelly Marie Tran has experience as doing comedy acting as a comedy person. She's, I think, got great comedy chops with her delivery in The Last Jedi for her comedy moment. So I'm excited to see her be able to flex those chops. And then in the kind of bigger meta thing, it's great to see Kelly Marie Tran saying, I still want to be involved. I'm happy to be involved.
That was I'm so glad you brought that up. That was my biggest excitement is, we saw how long it took Ahmed Best to just kind of be like, I'm ready to come back to do Star Wars. And granted, he did eventually start voicing Jar Jar in Clone Wars, but even that took some time. He wasn't ready. He said he's not ready. And you and I have discussed Phil LaMarr stepping in for a little bit. But for Kelly Marie Tran to be like, nope, I'm here. I love this character. And glad to do it. That's, maybe in her quiet time, she thought, do I want to do this? But she chose yes. And that's exciting for me. I totally think it's a great point, Joseph. Regarding Rey, Waugh added, what is the writers were thinking, what is Rey missing right now? She is so focused on the burden of being the only Jedi in this new era and the duty of potentially passing on that knowledge. She's missing the point that there still needs to be time to be with your friends and the family you've made. That's a pretty, I don't know, that's a holiday story to me. That sounds like a holiday, a lesson to be learned there. Again, you mentioned this is canon adjacent. We're approaching this with a spirit of fun. I think it's going to, be silly. But what do you think about this just general idea for Rey and this part of the story there in terms of perhaps going forward, whether or not we'll ever see other Rey material? What do you think about that?
I think it's great. You and I did an episode that was, the Republic Reborn, talking about where might the characters go if there is future storytelling, or just imagining putting ourselves in the shoes of those characters, knowing their triumphs, knowing their tragedies, what would they be doing? And I think we talked about something similar to this, which makes me really excited that Rey, along this whole journey, has wanted belonging. She's wanted, a family, and she has that now. But she's also truly accepted the lightsaber. She's accepted the mantle of the Jedi. So I think this is great that she would be torn between those things. It makes sense for her character that she would say, I am now the last Jedi. I am the next generation. That's a responsibility, and I got to take it seriously. But also, I could just kick back and spend time with my friends. To be pushed and pulled between those things is not only just a perfect, as you were saying, holiday thing to just highlight the real world thing where we're all caught up in our own lives, but then we also want to spend time with our community, and that's in a lot of ways what holidays are about, a reminder to just spend time with the people closest to you. So I think it's great for holiday. I think it's great for Rey. And to take it even a step farther into Star Wars nerdery, I think it's some great Star Wars poetry, because this is Luke stuff, right? This is Luke going, I made all these mistakes as I grew to become a Jedi. Yoda really told me very clearly, this is not about adventure and excitement. This is about responsibility. This takes the most serious mind, the best commitment. So I'm going to get to it. I'm going to be serious. I'm going to be committed. And Luke kind of gave passed some of that on to Rey, saying, but the Jedi did fail. They made a lot of mistakes, and you got to be really careful. You got to be a real person. You can't be a legend. So imagining all of that kind of stuff going through Rey's head and going on a similar journey to Luke, but maybe a better one this time, where her friends are like, that's great that you found somebody who needed to be trained. That's great that you found a dangerous Force artifact, but also we're eating dinner with the Wookiees in the trees. So put the lightsaber down and have some fun with us. The reason you're fighting, your friends.
Yeah, this highlights to me once again, the most important sequence in Star Wars is Dexter's Diner, because Obi-Wan knows there's a lot going on in the galaxy, but go get a space omelet with your friend Dex and take some time for yourself there. This is kind of a Jedi mental health issue, and I love that you brought up the Luke stuff, because in the story we know right now, we don't know all the details, but he does pick up and go, start searching the galaxy for clues. And I think it's great stuff about learning, all right, I'm a Jedi now, like my father before me. What does that mean? I got to go figure that out for myself, as well as, pick up the compass, all those kind of things, those canon things and plot things. But emotionally, just Luke kind of, all right, the war's over. I'm a Jedi. Roll up my sleeves. We got to carry on. We all do that in the real world. You and I are kind of similar in this kind of field, where we're going 7 days a week. You're writing, you're working, you're recording. And we have to remind ourselves, you know what? Tonight, me and my wife are going to have some cheese toast from the smokehouse and watch a movie and turn off our brains. And a friend of mine, an actor, Scott Antonucci, he just launched his YouTube channel. He did a video. He just did it today, and we were talking about it. He's like, get out of LA, turn off your mind, and release yourself of that feeling of, oh God, I'm taking a moment, and therefore I'm not working. I think all that can apply into this silly Lego holiday starting point for Rey.
Yeah.
Take a moment.
Yeah, it's so great, because so much about the sequel trilogy has been, you got to learn from the past, both the triumphs and the tragedies. And it's great to see right away, like this pressure to be like, Rey, don't make Luke's mistake, because, Luke wasn't around, which made him turn into a much more of a legend, which he ended up resenting, right? Because if he was like, hey, I'm going to come to the meetings about setting up the New Republic, I'm right here with Leia. Look, yeah, I have a lightsaber, but I'm not some mystery. Like, he turned himself into a mystery, so it's great to see that not happening to Rey.
I love that idea. Just, he went to the hills and made it easier for me. Let me tell you the tale of Luke Skywalker. This is going to be fun. Any other thoughts, looking at this holiday special, the Lego, and Wah talks about it in this interview, the Lego sense of humor is always there. You and Jennifer in the past have always talked about the Freemaker adventures. Is there any kind of fun little thing you might still want that hasn't been announced for this holiday special?
I know they've hinted at having actual connections or perhaps characters from the original holiday special. I'm really thinking we're going to see Akmena. I would love Krellman. I want to see a Lego pour alcohol into the hole, which is just like be such great irony for a Lego that they normally have the little, the thing on the top of their head. So if he had nothing on his head, nothing to plug in, just a place to pour the booze.
Which also means we could be one step closer to getting a Lego minifig of B. Arthur and Harvey Korman, and I am
Oh,
all
please.
about
I
that.
would buy that Lego set for sure. Uh, one
Uh,
other thing that this
yeah.
just reading about this drove home of like we can all make our life day jokes and the Wookiees and that, but also just to that it is going to be fun. It is going to be silly because that's what the Lego stuff is. But just that extra emotional punch that Chewie's Han's life fell apart and Chewie's like, "All right, I got you, buddy." And then he's there with the Resistance. He's taking Rey on dubious
Yeah.
missions to turn Kylo Ren. He's
Yeah.
going everywhere. He's doing everything that's asked of him. That all of his buddies would be like, "Hey, let's go to your place for the holidays." It's extra emotional.
Oh, man, I hope we get some itchy and lumpy. We'll see. This is going to be a lot of fun. November 17th, we, of course, will be covering it here on ForceCenter. All right, final story of the day. This is, here you go. Here you go. Luke Skywalker's death in episode 8 was on the table prior to 2012. This kind of emerged from Twitter. This is from Pablo Hidalgo's new book, Star Wars: Fascinating Facts. It was quietly released on October 13th. You and I we saw the book was out, and we didn't even really talk about it. I didn't even know the release date. It's already in our laps. We're gonna get some copies ourselves and dive in. But a Twitter user named Oozer, at the news source these days, Twitter user Oozer posted a pic on page 140 of the book, and it made quite the kerfuffle. Hidalgo wrote that George Lucas's treatments for 789 had Luke Skywalker dying in episode 8 as well, and that this was long before the development of Last Jedi. Now, we'll start here. It should be noted it's unclear which part of the development this was. There's a Mark Hamill interview out there of him saying, no, George said episode 9 and this and that. And you and I, the starting point for this conversation, Joseph, is you and I are very aware, as are most Star Wars fans, George Lucas, his own personal timeline is often a little wonky,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. In fact, there was an article from 2012 that I believe the great Phil Sostak retweeted and shared on Twitter recently. It's from like 2012, right after the sale, going through all the different things that Lucas had said about, is it 9 movies? Is it 12 movies? Is he going to do all 9? No, he's not. Yes, he is. This is what it's about, and how much it's changed over the years. So it's right there on StarWars.com from actual Star
Yeah.
Wars historians that Lucas's plans changed a lot.
A lot indeed. Additionally, Hidalgo wrote, and this was tweeted. I think I saw this in our Discord. Once again, our ForceCenter Patreon Discord, a great source of information of news for us here. He also wrote that there had been previously, and this had been previously revealed, kind of like what you were mentioning here with some of the Sostak stuff, that Luke would be a Colonel Kurtz type of character, and the character that would become Rey was like Willard going upriver to seek him out. This is, of course, like Apocalypse Now, which, by the way, George wanted to do. That was the movie he was supposed to do next after Star Wars. So, overall, putting this all on the table, Joseph, what are our raw, two-part question here? What are our raw reactions, and then what are our thoughtful, more measured reactions to this
Oh
news?
man, I think my raw and my thoughtful reaction might be pretty close to the same. My knee-jerk reaction, just for myself as a fan, is I'm always really curious what was and was not in these great mysterious Lucas treatments. So it's fun anytime that there's clarification on what was or was not in those treatments. That's just my first level. That's cool to hear. I'm always happy to hear it. My next reaction, in linear fashion, maybe a little bit more on the raw side of, I think Pablo Hidalgo is so great. He has such great wisdom and love, but also snark. And there is this, like, there's no way that Mr. Hidalgo did not know that he was luring meat into the Shark Tank of the Star Wars conversation, right? It's really fun to share. It is a truly interesting fact. And, I don't have the book. Maybe there's some greater context that once I read it, I'll be like, oh, that's why that's there. But it is, he's got a sense of whimsy. He's got a little bit of that sense of play about this conversation. So there's that element too. One other level of reaction, and then I will shut up because I want to hear your reactions. I also just was not even remotely surprised by it as a fact. I know for a lot of people, there's so much consternation still about The Last Jedi and the way Luke was portrayed, and then Luke's passing is all tied into some of the specific consternation. But to me, Luke passing was not, it was an emotional roller coaster as I watched the film, but it ultimately wasn't surprising. And it is not even remotely surprising to me that George Lucas would tell this story that a mentor must pass on in order for the new generation to emerge. George Lucas decided during the shooting of A New Hope to have Obi-Wan Kenobi pass into the Force because he didn't want that mentor just standing around doing nothing. A lot of the ideas of the Force and the philosophy that George Lucas built the Force from is all about just the cyclical nature of things, and that the old must give way to the new. So it's a huge part of the hero's myth that the mentor passes on. So in some ways, this is really shocking and cool. And in other ways, this is about the most straightforward George Lucas likes traditional myths piece of information one could imagine.
Yeah, that's right there with you. And on that raw reaction of, I'm not going to lie, I had a little bit of a looking at this and going, yeah, that makes sense. You can't tell me. And I'm dying. I want to know every word in the official submitted purchased treatments of George Lucas. I would love to get my hands on those. Who wouldn't? Not for a case of what if, but just of, man, what was in his mind and what was similar and what would match up. And because it's the emotional connections we love, and a lot of those wouldn't be surprising. But just, you can't tell me that the guy who made the prequels would not do a new series of movies and say, yeah, it's important that the current generation passes everything on to the next generation and that I tell a different story. There's no surprise there. Like you said, there's just no surprise that would come from George Lucas.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe the bone of contention for some fans is, but would it have come in 7, 8, or 9? And that's the thing. To me, that's a little bit more, I don't know, in the weeds in a way that isn't emotionally important to me. And I think the great mystery to me of the Lucas treatments is, I suspect from little things that have the little crumbs we've gotten, I suspect that Lucas's treatments are either just a lot of different roads to get to the same destinations that we got to anyway, which is like an example of this one. Or there was that one quote where Lucas said, well, my trilogy was just they were going to go inside the Force, and we were going to learn about the midichlorians and the Wills, and it was going to be all Force priestesses and, strange cosmic virginces, So that's the thing that I'm most interested in, honestly, is that something he said afterwards, after reflection, after he saw Force Awakens and got upset because he didn't think there was enough new, and he went out and said, like, yeah, it was gonna be microscopic, the main characters are gonna be midichlorians. Did he say that as a reaction, or is that in the original treatment? That's one of the most fascinating things to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to follow George's comments through the years. A lot of them changed. A lot of them are very consistent. And we're not saying he's wishy-washy or anything. He's just a creator, and he's kind of going to some stuff we were talking about Favreau earlier, and the organic. There's that word. He just wants to see it flow, but it does stay true to that myth idea. And in terms of, I always. Not always. I can't say that. That's not true. But this Colonel Kurtz type of approach, and what we got with Luke, the grumpy man on the island, even though you and I were just talking about, hey, hopefully Rey doesn't, follow that path, goes a different direction and connects with her friends and doesn't forget a little bit of pleasure with the business. I just still think that's just way more powerful choice than fade in episode 7. There's Luke with a lightsaber going, let's go get him. Like, I love that we got the crazy bearded wizard that had some issues. Just great tension in that for this story, and I like that George, who wanted to do Apocalypse Now, would think the same thing, or not saying I'm thinking the same thing as George, but just that he'd be in line with that.
Yeah,
makes sense.
I think that's the other fascinating thing that I was thinking about with these treatments is you can't just look at it as like, what was George Lucas's master plan? Because it has changed over time, right? So to me, I think about it as a thought experiment of, where was Lucas in 2011, 2012 when he sat down to write this? By all accounts, knowing that he was creating these treatments as a package of selling his company. So you can imagine Lucas being like, Yeah, no, I know everybody thinks that I was Luke. I was, I wasn't on Tatooine. I was in Modesto. I was not racing my T16. I was racing, my car, and I was staring off in the single sunset, not the twin sunsets. And now here I am much later, having gone through all of this, and am a little jaded by it, that is
Yeah.
a part of what his storytelling is. And that if he's sitting down to write these treatments, when he knows he's
Mm.
selling his myth in passing it on to the next generation, that's gonna be on his mind, right? The passing to a next generation, and what does he feel about it, and how much did Luke represent that in his treatment?
Absolutely. George going away to an island saying, please don't bother me. It makes some sense.
Yeah.
Makes some sense. There you go. There's our raw reactions and our more thoughtful, measured reactions the Force Center way here. We're going to get our hands on this book and we'll see. Maybe there'll be some other facts we can have fun with. And I'm like you, those great what ifs, Joseph. That's why the art of books are some of my favorites. And Pablo, he's got a way about him. And I think some of this might be him poking back. I think the visual dictionary for episode 9, he was trying to get out ahead of some of the questions he knew were going to be asked. Even the Last Jedi one you and I've talked about, he's got the answer for the bombs and the gravity before the movie even comes out. He can anticipate. He's been doing this for a long time. He's been in those forums since the 90s. He knows how it goes. So this is a book that we didn't talk about before, but I think it's going to be an interesting pickup there. So that is our look at Star Wars news. As always, breaking news will happen right after we release these episodes, but at least this time we knew that a Mando sneak peek was on the way. So hope you all enjoyed listening to that. Before we take a quick break and come back with your questions, we want to do our Force Center Recommends, an audiobook we think you should try out on us. Joseph, what do we have today?
Today we have Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray. It is one of my favorites. It has a lot to do with prophecy. And for our deep dive episode this week, we are going to be talking about the prophecy of the chosen one. So Master and Apprentice seem like a good one to recommend today.
Absolutely is. Download your free audiobook today at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audiobook. All right, quick break. We are going to reset. On the other side, we've got your Star Wars questions. This is Force Center.